Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Alistair Scott.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Well, unfortunately for Mr. Peters, this bill is redundant. This bill carries no purpose, is not useful, and contributes nothing to any of the property registration. The idea of a register is completely redundant and unnecessary, and I'll tell you why. First of all, we have, for the protection of his fear of overseas people owning property, we have an Overseas Investment Office which scrutinises investment in our property, in our land. So that's the first thing. And we can talk about whether that's a useful office or not, whether it's doing an appropriate job or not, but in any case, that is their role, to scrutinise overseas investment. Secondly, we have, since I imagine this bill was put on the ballot, there's been a lot of legislation passed that deals with some of the things that Mr. Peters talks about. So we have passed, I think it was 3 tranches of legislation that dealt with property speculation, essentially. Part of it was the Bright Line test, so that brought in the two-year time period, which clarified what was taxable. We also brought in some information that was acquired from buyers and sellers of New Zealand land. So that's already there. They are there to provide some tax information for the IRD, and those people have to provide a bank account number with that information. So they've got to get their IRD number, they've got to get a bank account number, and this is to go through and protect the possibility or the opportunity of money laundering. So those 3 pieces of legislation have passed, and they've kicked off from, parts of it have kicked off from the 1st of October last year. So there's, I think in my view, Mr. Speaker, a lot of the concerns that Mr. Peters has have been covered, have been taken care of, have been looked after by the passing of those 3 pieces of tax legislation and, as I say, the Overseas Investment Office. If we were to do what has been suggested, it creates a whole level of bureaucracy, a whole lot of confusion around who has to register. So does my son who lives overseas have to register his name when he purchases a property in New Zealand? Oh, he does, even though he's a New Zealand passport holder. So that's the point. Well, so that's the point. So, Mr. Speaker, I think there's a whole lot of information that has been made redundant or is unnecessary with the passing of time. So, Mr. Speaker, I cannot commend this bill, and I do not support this bill to the House.
Mr. Speaker.